What's going on, guys? Today we're doing a quick install on my friend's 2010 F150. We're putting this light bar in the bumper. We sort of jumped the gun and I forgot to start recording, but we can catch you up easily. These black plastic trim pieces are from here, so we had to pull these off in order to get this light bar into place because this is a 20-inch light bar, but most 20-inch light bars are actually a little bit longer than that because of the housing. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna take these and we're gonna trim them using a Dremel, just so that we can fit this piece back on, as well as fitting the light bar into place. They're really easy to pop off. There's these four little squeeze tabs that you have to get. So you get them and they're here. You can easily just fit your hand in right here. The other two are a little bit trickier. You might have to reach in all the way with a screwdriver or just gently wiggle it out and then poke from the top and bottom with a flathead in order to get them out. But right now what we're working on is, once we've got the trim off, what we're going to be doing is we're going to measure across so that we can get this thing perfectly centered, and then we're going to get this mounted. There is metal right here, so we're going to use probably some self-tapping screws or bolts, because there's plenty of space to get behind here and work, which is actually really nice. It's not crammed. So once we get that into place, we're going to move on to the wiring portion. This came with a wiring harness. We haven't fully decided yet whether we're going to use it or not. We just hooked it up so we can test the light right now. This light is from OFFROADTOWN. I'll put a link in the description. But like I said, it was a 20-inch light bar. So we're going to move on to measuring and then mounting the brackets to hold this thing in place. And once we get that done, we'll get back to you. So as we were marking this up, we discovered a problem, which I don't think would be too uncommon to just this bar specifically. I think a lot of them, depending on how wide these brackets are, you could run into the same problem too, which is these, we turned them around. So normally you wouldn't want to mount them this way, because what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to mount the brackets themselves first, then insert the light bar. And what that's going to require us to do is we're going to have to make sure that our numbers are perfect. So we just spent the past like 10 minutes or so marking this up and measuring. What we did was we measured all over the place. We measured up, down, side to side. Then what we did was we took the measurement here, divided it in half so that we could get this bar centered. And then we need to measure on both sides to get it equal, basically, because we want this thing to be centered both side to side as well as up and down. So we've got our holes in place now, so that what we're going to do is we double checked everything. So we're going to go and we're going to start drilling. But the reason being is that normally you'd be able to have these brackets flipped around and you could drill them into place and then just have the bar ready to go. But like I mentioned, we're going to have to take these off, drill holes, put these on, and then insert the bar, because there's just not enough space. These were hitting these right here, which is just some bumper support, but we can't get rid of it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use just an average drill bit, and then we're going to use a little WD-40 to keep it from overheating and lubricate it as we drill through this. And then once we do that, we have the bolts. We'll bolt those brackets on, and the light bar will be mounted. Then we're going to have to move on to trimming the plastic pieces a little bit. But once we move on to that, I'll show you how we're going to do that. So right now, we're going to drill the holes, get this thing mounted, and then move on. So as you can see, we've got the brackets mounted in place. We drilled our holes, everything fits. We were able to slide the bar in perfectly. Right now, they're just loose. What we're going to do is we're actually going to get the bar in place, then tighten up the bag. That way, if there is any sort of pull inwards, we don't have to try and force the bar into place. So once we do that, then we're going to get the plastic back on and make the necessary cuts that we need to. We're going to try and keep it looking as sort of factory as possible. What we ended up having to do was we used a 1/4-inch drill bit initially, and then we used a 5/16 drill bit to finish the holes off. So those are both done. We're going to get the bar mounted in place, and once I start cutting the plastic, we'll get back to you guys and show you how we're going to do that. Okay, so we just finished cutting the passenger side trim, like black trim piece. So this is what we had to go with based off of how wide this bar is. So from the front, it looks about the same. And then when you get onto the side, that's when you can kind of see where we cut. I used a Dremel and a sander to try and, as well as a hand file, to try and clean it up as best as possible. You can notice it when you look up really close, but from far away, it doesn't matter that much. And then what we're gonna have to do on this side is you can see how much we had to take off. So we had to make almost like a half moon type shape in it, or not quite, but this now will fit perfectly here. I'm not gonna slam it on into place just yet, but as you can see, it'll fit right around that bar. And right now it's not tight, but as soon as we punch it in, it'll be tight up against that. So we're gonna replicate the same thing on that side. Make sure that all of our bolts are tight and everything is good before we put these on, just because it will be rather difficult to get them off now, since in order to push the pins behind there, we went in from here before, but now the bar's in the way. So we don't want to have to take them off again. But that's how we did it. Like I said, Dremel, sander, and hand file, and I think it worked out well. It doesn't really look too bad at all. We tried to sort of keep some angles so that it looked sort of like it was intentional. Not that it has been cut. Sort of, for somebody who's not looking at it, they won't notice it. So that's what we did. Next, after we finish this, we're going to move on to the wiring. All right, so we've now finished trimming up the plastic pieces that go in the bumper, and we're moving on to the wiring. So we're using these LED marine grade halo switches, which I really like to use for wiring stuff. I think they look really cool and they look really clean. You're able to tighten them down on the dash nicely. So the wiring for these can be a little bit complicated. The way we're going to do it with this switch is we're going to have the halo be off when the switch and the bar are off, and then when you click it in, this red halo here will come on, indicating that the bar is on, and you'll see that red halo. And then vice versa, when you turn it off, it'll be off. So in order to do that with the wiring on the back, for this specific brand, which is APIELE, I will link this in the description. You have to have the green being your positive coming into the switch. Your black is your ground. You have to twist the red and the blue together, and that's going to be your positive leaving the switch, because that's how these switches work. So with using this, we're going to incorporate that into the factory wiring harness that they gave us for this bar, because there's a lot of good stuff going on. And then real fast, I'm going to tell you the one bad thing that I don't like about this, which is why we're going to go with that switch on top of, we're going to make a small modification, which is, it came with this plastic connector, which is just some 3-pin connector, but it's in no way, shape, or form like waterproof. The actual connection that goes to the light bar is pretty nice. It's got a gasket. It twists on really tight, so I'm not worried about that. But this connector isn't great. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this, and we've got 3 wires. We have a white, blue, and black. Right now, I'm not sure which one is going to be positive coming in and positive coming out. We'll figure that out with a test light. But what we're going to do is we're going to cut these, and we're going to solder and extend the wires, and I'll show you guys how to do that. I'll just show you on one wire real fast how to solder wires together. It's fairly simple. So basically what we'll do is, once we have that, we're going to snake the wires around here, get everything wrapped up nicely. We're going to come up here to the driver's side, right above the front wheel well, and right down here, there is a rubber grommet, and what we'll do is we'll use a coat hanger so that we can snake the wires through there and into the cab. So right now I'm going to show you, like I said, I'll show you how to solder. Once we have the wires soldered into the cab, and we will work on the switch inside the cab. Okay, so this is going to be a quick tutorial on how to solder. So this is stranded wire. There's 2 types of wire. You could have one that's either solid, or you can have this, which is stranded. And then this is also stranded, which works out good in our favor. So what I like to do is, to begin, you need to wire strip. I sort of skipped a step on you guys. I already did it. These are really nice tools to have. They're like quick wire strippers. There you go, and it's done. So we're going to be connecting blue to blue. We're trying to extend all the wires the same color, just to make life easier when you're inside the cab. You don't have to try and remember what you paired to what. So you'll spread these stranded wires apart, and then you'll take the 2, you put them in together, and then you're going to want to twist opposite of each other. That will give you already a decent connection in terms of strength. So you twist opposite of each other, and you can give it a little tug. It's not going anywhere. Then what we're going to do is you need a soldering iron in order to solder. Not everyone has one of these, so you could obviously use quick connectors that are heat shrink quick connectors if you wanted to. I always prefer to solder over those because of the potential that they could come apart or something like that. This isn't coming apart unless somebody cuts it. So what we're going to do is we're going to tin our soldering iron a little bit, which is you just want to get a little bit of solder on the tip there, which will help get it started. And then you're gonna go on the wire. Normally if you had a soldering station, you could clip on the sides, but I have my friend holding the one side and then I just weighted the other side down. We're gonna get the wire heated up, and then what you like to do is you almost want to just paint with the solder back and forth on the wire, and you'll see that it'll start to melt into the wire. You don't need a ton, then you can just take it off. Keep in mind that that's super hot and you don't want to let it touch your skin. And then if you have one of these, you can get it for cheap off Amazon. I got this for like 10 bucks. You can use it to clean the soldering iron tip, because you obviously don't want to touch it to clean it off. So you just run it in here and it'll clean it off nicely for you. That way you don't have all that extra solder and stuff on it. And then once you've got it soldered together, you're gonna let it cool down, and then we're gonna take heat shrink. I have a giant roll of it, but what I'll do is we'll just cut a little section. I'll show you guys what we're gonna do. We'll cut a little section and we'll slide that over the wire, and then with a heat gun, all you do is you heat this up and it will shrink onto the wire, and it will make this about as weatherproof as you could hope for it to be. Not as good as the original sheathing, but it's the next best thing. So once you've got that done, you would just repeat the process for these, and then we'll move on to snaking these wires into the cab. But that's a quick tutorial on how you solder. If you have any questions about this, because it can be a little complicated, feel free to comment and I'll try my best to respond to them. Okay, so we are inside the cab, and as you can see, we have taken off this piece of trim. This is the back side of the piece of trim. We have two Sharpie marks here. The X is actually where we're going to drill a hole using our step drill bit to put this through. What we do have here is we now have the wires coming in. When you're inside the truck, that's the grommet that we brought the wires through, and we're going to bring the wires up basically into the back of our receiving end for the push button, and that is all going to pop out right here. That there's enough space for this to clip on behind it. We'll connect the wires down here, and then we'll drill a hole like I mentioned through here, put this into place, clip the back on that, and we'll be good for a test. So we're gonna get that done right now, and like I said, we're using a step drill bit because that's one of the easiest ways to just go increment by increment to make the hole for this. We're gonna drill that hole, get this wrapped up, and then the inside of the truck is done. Okay, so we just finished everything up. The bar is in place. We still haven't put the plastic trim in place yet, just because we're waiting for it to be nighttime to see if we need to change the angle of this bar at all, because we know once we put that trim on, it's gonna be really hard to get off and nearly impossible to access these. So we're just gonna wait until it's later to put that on, but besides that, everything is done. If you look back here, we had extra wire, but we zip tied it. I realize that's hard for you guys to see. The wire is snaked for the bar across here, down the side, then up here, and we have our relay just tucked right here, connections to the battery, and then we have the actual wire that goes into the cab to the switch running through here, down tucked across here, up along the side, through the grommet, and then we'll show you guys how these halo switches look. I think it came out really good. As you can see, that's flush on the dash, and then when you click it on, you've got this awesome little red glow, and the bar is working. So we'll get a clip for you guys outside, and then we'll get one more hopefully once it's dark. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. Again, this is a 2010 F150. I'm not 100% certain on what body styles or what range of trucks you can do this in, but I know it works in the truck that's this similar body style. And this is an awesome mod. Pretty easy to do. You can use the wiring harness that they provide you, which is a super added benefit, because if you don't know how to solder or something like that, you can get away using what they provide you. So like I said, again, please feel free. Any questions, comment them, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. So this is going to be the headlights on and the bar. Makes a huge difference. It also has a really sort of wide throw to the left and right, which is pretty helpful if you're driving the mountains or something like that. And then we're going to show you guys with the headlights off what the bar would look like just for kicks. Still massive improvement over the headlights. And then I'll show you what it looks like on the front. Really happy with how it came out. It looks super bright, and it's not even dark out yet. So if it was pitch black, this would be a huge improvement.